Hello again and welcome. Michael Pizzolla here. I'd like to welcome you to this edition of the ValueCapping Rant. This is the 2019 Florida Derby edition. The Florida Derby is being held at Gulfstream Park on Saturday, March 30th, 2019. And I'd like to make a brief video for you about applying value capping to this race. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Michael Pizzolla. I am the author of the best-selling handicapping book, Handicapping Magic, co-author of the classic book, Pace Makes the Race. I am the developer of the original online racing forum. It's called Post Time Daily 2.0. You can find out all about it at posttimedaily.com. It's a beautiful, fully customizable past performance, and it's slick. I am also the developer of the Blackmagic family of software, Blackmagic 1.0, and the latest version called ValueCapper, Blackmagic Handicapper 2.0. It's the software I'll be using to analyze the Florida Derby. I've done a free video course for you, the ValueCapping Revolution Basic Training Course. It's available for free at ValueCapper.com if you want to learn more about value capping. And look, there's so much in this. These are full-length videos on the value capping framework and the real difference between value capping and handicapping. I'm going to go into that a little bit in this video. Talk about the 5x5 formula, and yes, about the software and the training that's available. But listen, even if you're not a software kind of handicapper, and you want to understand the principles that are really valuable in today's modern game, I would highly recommend this course to you. It's free. You get a video every couple of days by email. There are 4 videos. Sign up for it for free at ValueCapper.com. Okay, in a nutshell, the value capping framework is to find and bet horses that you like that the public shouldn't, preferably running against vulnerable favorites. We wait for our prices, and then we have this felt sense that, yep, this is a good bet. I call it letting the bet make you. Want to point out another thing, that on big days, and I've said this for years, don't get seduced by only the big races. Good value opportunities often appear in the undercards. Not only the undercards at the track at which the big race is being held, but at the other so-called minor tracks around the country. 3 important points about this video. This is not a touting video. I don't know who's going to win the race. I've been at this game way too long to say that this horse is a lock. I don't do that. I'm not all that interested in finding necessarily the winner. I'm looking to find a good value bet. Okay? And most of all is to demonstrate the principles of value capping, which are, you can pause this again, bet horses you like the public shouldn't, preferably running against vulnerable favorites. Wait for your price and let the bet make you. 2, I'm making this video the day before the race. I don't have scratches. I don't have weather changes and so forth. 3, value investment potentials are price dependent. That means if there's no adequate price, there's no bet. Okay? This is a big difference between value capping and handicapping. If I have a horse at the top of my line and it gets bet down to below the price that I think would compensate for the risk of betting that horse, I don't go, and the horse runs up the track, which it can and often does. I don't get concerned about going back and retooling everything, and it was like, okay, the horse didn't run. But when I get the price, when you get a good value potential, and those prices make up for a lot of losses and then some. And in the Value Capping Revolution Basic Training Course, I explain why that strategy is so necessary given all the good information that is out there, all the computer software, all the downloadable things, all the information that's on the internet. It's playing a contrarian game. All right, with that said, let's take a look at how ValueCapper views the Florida Derby, the 2019 Florida Derby. There are 3 horses that are in blue there, kind of at the top of the line: Maximum Security, Bode Express, and Hidden Scroll. Hidden Scroll, I expect, well, the morning line maker expects this to be the favorite. I think maybe Code of Honor, which is in the third cluster down there, might be the favorite. After all, it just won the Fountain of Youth. And I'm going to be focusing on those top 6 horses. Now, I have to tell you that just because Value Capper uses contrarian principles, it doesn't mean it's totally contrary, because otherwise you just take the slowest horse and the horse that looks the most out of form, right? So it's a mix of using good, solid, I believe, really the best pace numbers that are available. I'm biased, right, because they're my numbers. You take those numbers and you use them in an unusual way, looking for a horse coming to a race. Even so, of those top 6 horses that Value Capper points out, 4 of them are the morning line favorites, namely Hidden Scroll, Code of Honor, Bourbon War. Those are the 3 finishers. There's also Union's Destiny that comes out of the Fountain of Youth, and Maximum Security. So we've got the morning line favorites assessed, and very often when my opinion, Value Capper's opinion, agrees with the crowd's, I'm not interested in the race. I'm not interested. I don't think taking a horse at 2-1, unless it looks like Man of War times a bunch, compensates for the risk involved in horse racing. Horse breaks slowly, doesn't feel well, and so forth. Now, one of the things I always do is set up a race. I can do this by hand. I lay that out in Handicapping Magic. Acupressure, which is in Value Capper, shows a pace projection of the race, a possible scenario. Why do I say possible? Well, jockeys can read the past performances as well. And if they see a lot of speed in the race, they say, well, maybe I'll reserve the horse. Or maybe a horse that has been closing thinks that maybe it can get the lead. And so this is based on the cold, hard information, looking at every race and every horse's past performance. Is it perfect? No, but it gives us an idea. And the Florida Derby comes up as unpressured based on the fact that Hidden Scroll, Bode Express look like they may have the lead. Now, having said that, there are other horses that want to be up near the front. Maximum Security for one, and we'll look at these in more detail. The closers being Code of Honor, Bourbon War, Harvey Wallbanger, which I don't think is going to be fast enough to run in this race. So it's an unpressured race. The other clue, well, it projects to be an unpressured race. Who knows how it's going to turn out? The other clue we can take is from the track profiles. When we look at the 9 furlong races that have been run at Gulfstream, and I had to go back a little bit because they don't run this distance very often. The first thing I notice is the lengths back at the second call. The horses that have been winning are close up at the second call and expend their energy kind of all over the place, from a low of 50.95 to a high of 52.69. What does that mean? That means that both horses that expend their energy toward the late side and toward the early side can win, and they need to be close to the pace. If we extend this out to a mile and 16th, 8.5 furlongs, we find once again most of the horses are close up at the second call. There have been a couple that have won from 5-6 lengths back, and the energy expenditure is all over the place. So this tells me most any kind of expenditure can be a factor in the race. Now, let's look at the horses, the colts actually, in order as they appear in the value capping line. Top of the line is Maximum Security. Hard to tell. This colt is 3 for 3, kind of demolished 3 fields. Okay, that's the good news. The not so good news is it did it in a $16,000 maiden and a couple of optional claiming races. So it's been beating up on potentially non-champion colts. How will this colt do today? How will it do if it doesn't get the lead, which it doesn't project to based on the fractions it's run? And the answer is, I don't know. This is why price is so important. There's not a lot to knock on this Colt. All right, it's run 3 spectacular races. However, a traditional handicapper would say, well, why would you start a champion, a horse that you thought might be a champion, at a $16,000 maiden claimer? And by the way, the rest of the public will think that. Okay, it has the highest verified last race master pace number, 163.2. It just doubled that number. It made it paired it up, as the Sheets players that I used to hang out with back in the day in New York would say, I've got a 163.2 to 163.6. So that's the top of the line. How will this Colt do at a 1 1/8? Well, its energy expenditure is kind of in line, right? 51.46, 52.34, 51.49. Now, again, don't know how it will expend its energy if it's not going to be on or close to the lead, if it doesn't run up there. So that's the horse with the best quote-unquote numbers. The Colt that ValueCapper puts second on the line is Bode Express. It's 30-1 morning line. Why? The Colt is still a maiden. It's a Bodemeister Colt, and it's had 4 races, 2 quote-unquote good, 2 quote-unquote bad. What happened in the bad races? Well, in its first start, it got bumped and checked, and in its second race back on January 26th, it was in the slop. Another Colt didn't do well past the sprint, but then in its last race made a nice little close. How will this Colt run? Don't know. Its energy expenditure looks a little early. So I'm not getting warm and fuzzies on either of these Colts, even though they have the ValueCapper's best odds. All right, let's look at the morning line favorite, Hidden Scroll, which is third on the line and in the top cluster. This is a puzzle. Is this a need to lead Colt? In other words, it blew away at Maidenfield in the slop, got a 6-length lead at the second call, and just, blew the field away. Now, in the Fountain of Youth, the comment was that it got bumped and stumbled at the start, rushed up, and then tired. How will it do in the Florida Derby? Don't know. Was the big performance in the slop due to the slop? It's got good turf, good wet track, breeding. Okay, I'm not an expert on this, but I look at the number. It says 230. That's really good. I don't know if it's from which part of its breeding it's from, but could it be from that? Don't know. Will it absolutely need to lead today? Don't know. It looks a little early in its expenditure in the last. It's only got 2 lifetime races. Again, hard to assess. Having trouble finding a horse I quote-unquote like other than on pure numbers. This is the Colt I think they're going to make the favorite, actually. I think they'll take the Shug McGaughey Colt Code of Honor because, hey, this is the way a champion comes up to to its 3-year-old races if they're looking for the Triple Crown. It won its maiden at first asking at Saratoga. It finished second in the Champagne, laid off, and ran a, I don't know what to call it, not a great race in handicap on January 5th. And by the way, I read that Shug McGaughey took responsibility for that. Well, of course he always would because the trainer's kind of responsible for the training, right? Didn't work it out the way it should have been and so forth and so on. And, he knows what he's doing. So much so that this Colt went off at almost 10-1 in the Fountain of Youth. And ran a good race. See, about the only thing that I could say negatively about this is that, well, first, the numbers aren't great. The energy expenditures all over the place, but that looked like a pretty taxing race to me after a layoff. Sometimes that takes a lot out of a horse. However, 3-year-old colts can recover more quickly. So don't have a lot negative to say about this colt other than its numbers aren't fantastic. Now, the colt that finished second to Code of Honor is Bourbon War. Made a nice close, and the energy expenditures on the late side, if all the speed collapses, this is a possible bet. Will the speed collapse? Don't know. Don't know how the trainers and jockeys that will be looking at the same past performances that you and I are looking at what assessment they'll make. Okay? And talking about deep closers, look at Union Destiny. Well, not in its first 2 races, but in the Fountain of Youth, it was, at the back of the pack. That's way down on the line. It's the last one in the cluster of 6 horses on the line. If all the speed collapses, then you look at Todd Pletcher's colt, which I don't understand. I'm not Todd Pletcher. I'm not a trainer. This is a colt that ran last year in Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf. Put in a decent effort. It's got huge fractions on the turf, huge late fractions, that is. It's the first time on the dirt. How will it run on the dirt? Don't know. I do know that if a big speed duel develops, if all the front-running horses go after each other and they put down enormous fractions, this colt can sneak its way into the trifecta or the superfecta. So what to do? Well, remember value capping. We look for horses we like that the public shouldn't, preferably running against flawed favorites. And then the most important thing is the wait for the price. So when I look at this, do I have flawed favorites? Well, Code of Honor, a bit of a hard race after the layoff. Now, again, it's been trained and come to the race as a champion would. So that kind of compensates a bit for that. Hidden Scroll, don't know what the colt will do. At one blowout race in the slop or one for fun, then it had trouble in its last race. I don't really know. The 2 colts with the best numbers, I have questions about. Maximum Security, having beaten up on much potentially lesser quality, if you will, horses and colts. And Bode Express, that's still a maiden. So price will tell. Are these horses I like? I like them in terms of the numbers. Okay, their numbers are good. So if it was on pure numbers, yeah, I'd say, look, here they are. Bode Express, I don't think will be bet. Value Capper puts a target price, if you will, the VCP column, Value Capper price, and both of those are at 7-1. Not enough for me, given the reservations that I have. See, these are all guidelines. And by the way, any software you use, any number you use, any approach you use, you must use it as a tool. And as with most tools, it has more to do with the person using the tool than the tool itself. So would I take Maximum Security at 7-1? No way. I would be looking more to 12-1 to 15-1, and then I would kind of hold my nose a little bit and bet it. But at that price, yes, I would. Bode Express, even more so. Would I take it at 7-1? No. First of all, it's second in my line. There's a gap. Yeah, the public won't like it because it's a maiden, but then again, it's a real long shot. But give me 15-20-1. Yes, I'd have a small bet on it. I don't think there's any value in the quote-unquote logical colts, the ones that finished well in the Fountain of Youth. Code of Honor, I think, is going to be bet because, well, it won the Fountain of Youth. Then Hidden Scroll, which is the fulcrum, and can possibly reverse that, Bourbon War. I just don't think the prices are going to be there to bet it. I think that they're going to take the bulk of the action. If they forget about maximum security or just dismiss it, and they let it go off 12, 15 to 1, I'll take it. Bode Express, 15 to 20 to 1. A smaller secondary bet. So the race, as most 3-year-old Derby prep races, is a bit of a puzzle. I want to remind you that on big days, good value opportunities often appear in the undercards. Now, I've been asked not to make these videos marathons, so I'm not going to go through all the undercards and so forth. But I just give you an idea. The very first race at Gulfstream, 8:30 in the morning here on West Coast time, 11:30 in the morning back east, much more reasonable, right? I look for messier races that the public may not know what to do with. This is a $16,000 claiming race. The first race at Gulfstream on March 30th. It's a real mess. If you looked at the past performances on these horses, they're not so good. They're not champions in this field. The morning line maker didn't quite know what to do with this. It's got Dexter Road at 7 to 2, Son of Oahu at 4 to 1, Billy Big at 5 to 1. I may be looking to see if they really overlook some horses which have just as good an opportunity. A horse like Immunity, maybe Liquid Aloha, maybe throw Whiskey and Roses in the exact. I'll have to see what the board comes up with like this. But I urge you to look for when the public is really making a big mistake. But getting back to the Florida Derby, this is how ValueCapper sees the race. I have reservations about its top 2 horses. The next 3 horses are kind of going to be bet, and I don't think I'll get value on that. I will take a secondary bet if I get, again, 15, 20 to 1 on 12, 15 to 1 on maximum security, 15, 20 to 1 on Bode Express, and I'll be watching to see how the race unfolds. Most of all, I'll be watching the board. Well, I hope you enjoyed that. I want to urge you to always wait for your prices. Bet horses you like that the public shouldn't. Look for when there are flawed favorites. And above all, let the bet make you. Thank you so much for spending this time with me. Good luck at the races, and I'll see you soon.